In February 2019, the 28-year naming dispute between Greece and the country referred to as the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia was finally settled. The dispute arose in 1991 after the breakup of Yugoslavia, when the country declared its independence as the Republic of Macedonia. Greece took issue with this, given that Macedonia was a historically Greek kingdom, and indeed there still exists a region of Greece today called Macedonia. An agreement was made for the country to change its name, despite a lot of protests from the locals, to the Republic of North Macedonia. The name change was made, in part, to keep the peace with their neighbour, which in turn would allow the country to begin its accession to the EU and NATO. Its membership to both had always been blocked by Greece. It turns out that countries changing their name is not actually as uncommon as you might expect. A name is used for identification, and its importance cannot be understated. This is why so many nations have spent so much time internally debating what their name should be, and occasionally externally fighting over it. So what other reasons might a country have for changing its name? One answer to this question can be seen in a name change that took place shortly before that of North Macedonia. In 2018, the African nation formerly known as Swaziland changed its name to Eswatini, marking the 50th anniversary of the country's independence. The name change was made partly to avoid confusion with the somewhat similar sounding country of Switzerland, but more importantly was done to bring the English name of the country closer to that of the country's original Swazi name. In that sense, the country moved from an exonym to an endonym. An exonym is an external name for a geographic location, whereas an endonym is an internal one. This kind of change from an exonym to an endonym has been especially common in countries trying to distance themselves from their colonial past, in particular in Africa, where the process is known as Africanization. There are several examples of this, such as Northern and Southern Rhodesia, which became Zambia and Zimbabwe respectively, French Sudan, which became Mali, as well as the Gold Coast colony renaming itself Ghana upon independence. Now moving over to Asia is another country that sought to get away from the remnants of colonialism, Myanmar, or Burma? This is one name change that was a little more on the controversial side and is not universally recognised. The country gained its independence from the British in 1948 as the Union of Burma, and in 1962 adopted an ideology known as the Burmese Way to Socialism, after a coup d'etat led by Ne Win, the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. This period of the country's history was marked by totalitarianism, military rule and isolationism. In the late 1980s, the country found itself in economic crisis. This was further exacerbated by the still-in-charge Ne Win's decision to withdraw most of the recently issued banknotes without warning or the possibility of exchange, leaving just the 45 and 90 notes, wiping out the savings of millions of Burmese. Why did he do this? Because the number 9 was his lucky number, and those were the only two banknotes that were divisible by 9. Yes, I'm serious. This contributed to the 8888 uprising because it began on the 8th of August 1988, eventually leading to the ousting of Ne Win. Seems like 8 was a luckier number than 9. The military junta led by So Mao assumed control of the country. The following year, his government declared the new name for the country to be the Republic of the Union of Myanmar, as Burma was considered a lingering vestige of colonialism. Although Burma and Myanmar actually both have the same etymological roots and actually both refer to the same thing, the majority ethnicity in the country, the Bamar people. The only difference between the two is the formality of the words, with Burma being considered more colloquial while Myanmar is more official and formal. Somang's government promised free elections but rejected the results after they didn't get the desired outcome. This, coupled with the fact that it was very heavily involved in a wide range of human rights abuses, resulted in very few countries and organisations viewing the name change as legitimate. Of course, today the country has a new government and Burma and Myanmar are used somewhat interchangeably. In fact, the country's own state councillor has even stated that foreigners are free to use either name for the country. Moving on, and of course it's not just because of colonialism that a country might prefer to have others refer to it differently than they always have. An example of this would be the country of Iran, which was historically known as Persia in the West. The name Persia first came to the West via Greek from the Old Persian word Parsa, referring to an area of Iran which today is known as Fars. While the main ethnic group in Iran came from this region, hence the most spoken language in Iran, Farsi, The name Iran for the region of the country as a whole has been used for perhaps as many as 2,000 years by the local population. In 1935, the Shah of Iran politely requested that other countries refer to the country as Iran instead of Persia. Now, some names don't necessarily change, but the way that we interpret the names from the original languages into our own does. This was the case for many place names in Chinese, and why we now refer to the country's capital as Beijing and not Peking as it was previously known in English. Other examples include Canton to Guangdong and Nanking to Nanjing. These changes are due to the newer system of the romanization of Chinese characters, known as Hanyu Pinyin. The older transliterations are from what's known as postal romanization, a system that was developed by the Qing dynasty's imperial post office at the beginning of the 20th century. In a related but slightly different scenario, the Czech Republic did not change its official name, but designated itself the short form name Czechia. This is because the country has always gone by its official title and has never had a common short form name in English. This is quite unusual given that very few countries actually go by their official title. Take France for example, its official name is the French Republic, but of course in all but the most official circumstances it just gets called France. Likewise, there's Russia, the Russian Federation, and Italy, the Italian Republic, and so on. So while the Czech Republic remains the country's official name, the government has been trying to encourage others to refer to them in everyday conversation as Czechia, which is a direct translation of the Czech name for the country, Česko. Similarly, there are cases where countries that are typically referred to by a translation of their name want to go by their official name in their own language. Probably the most obvious example of this would be the country commonly referred to in English as the Ivory Coast. In 1986, they requested that the international community use the official French name Côte d'Ivoire, and that the name not be translated into any other languages. Of course, many people still do. There's also Cape Verde, which now goes by Cabo Verde, which is obviously a much more minor change given that Verde was already in the country's language of Portuguese, meaning green. Finally, the small Southeastern Asian nation commonly referred to in English as East Timor also went down this route recently and declared it should be referred to by its official, partly Portuguese name of Timor-Leste in all languages. Oddly enough though, Timor derives from Indonesian language, also meaning east, so the country actually has what's known as a tautological name, literally meaning east. Of course, there are plenty of countries whose names come from different places and different languages who have made no effort to change this. Germany is a good example. The country is called Deutschland in Germany. Deutschland derives from an Old High German word which originally meant of the people. The word actually did find its way into English as Dutch. However, this became associated with the Germanic peoples with which the English had the most contact. This is why people from the Netherlands are called Dutch in English. Germany derives from the Latin Germania, which was used to refer to tribes living across the Rhine in the days of Julius Caesar. Variations of this are used by many other languages as well, including Italian, Russian, and Romanian. Some other languages refer to Germany by variations of Alemanni. Of course, there are many other etymologies for the country as well, but these are the three most common. The reason for this is that Germany as a region, whether ethnic or geographical, existed for thousands of years before Germany as a unified state came into existence. The name that's used in a given place is at least in part a reflection of when or from where the idea of Germany entered into a given language. Germany is by no means unique in that its endonym differs from the various exonyms by which countries refer to them. There are plenty of other examples. Greece is called Hellas in Greek. Actually in English too, officially at least. The country's official title is the Hellenic Republic, but obviously it's almost always referred to as Greece, which came from Latin but its etymology is unclear. China is also an exonym, known in Chinese as Zhongguo, literally meaning central state or middle kingdom. This was first used around the time of the Eastern Zhou dynasty. The process of a country changing its name is no small undertaking, with an almost limitless number of things that could be needing changed. Road signs, official documents, passports, textbooks, not to mention every single world map. Of course, at the end of the day, the name of a country is important to the people who are represented by it. If the name of a country is consistent with a citizen's identity, it makes it that much easier for them to feel like they belong. Now, sticking with endonyms and exonyms, you might wonder how the continents got their names. Believe it or not, most of them are actually exonyms, but what if they weren't? Looking at that very question is a channel that I started watching a few months ago and who you should definitely start watching too if you don't already. Atlas Pro. These videos were made as a collaboration between the two of us, and in fact this very topic was his idea. So go watch his related video and then binge watch all his other videos too while you're at it. And as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.